Oh, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Hakem, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you joined us this morning. I'd love to know what you think or thought of the Al Smith dinner last night. We'll be talking about that. We also have a few updates on both campaigns. Obviously, as you are probably aware, some international stories as well. Later on in the 7 o'clock hour, we'll be talking to friend of Frankly Speaking, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Look forward to speaking with John. We haven't talked to him in a little while. I'll give you a lineup of the next few days of guests because as we near Election Day, it gets very busy, as you can imagine. But let's start with some viewer comments after the program yesterday. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Just got through watching the Fox interview with Harris, which was substanceless. However, I believe I have correctly assessed her demeanor as a person. She is rude, whiny, selfish, arrogant, annoying, and unstable brat. She did not answer one single question. She lost her composure several times. She is a finger pointer who points her finger at everyone but herself regarding her failures. She accepts no responsibility for said failures. Several times during the interview, Brett Baer, who did an excellent job, she was shown to have said one thing, but later would say the complete opposite. The list goes on, and it's cumbersome to type all of this out on my iPhone. I understand, but I thank you for doing the work. In summary, then, vote for President Trump. Thank you, viewer. Fox News, that interview with Harris, which, by the way, this is how CNN puts it. The key lines from Kamala Harris versus Fox News, and using things like combative and testy. Why isn't it J.D. Vance versus Meet the Press? Every time a Republican, I mean, it goes again to prove, and I know we've talked about it a million times, that a Democrat could never handle being a Republican because they're not used to the follow-up questions. They're not used to hard-hitting questions. And so when they receive it, it turns into a Kamala Harris versus Fox News. But if you look at the numbers for that interview, 7.8 million viewers, nearly quintuple the average audience of Special Report. And if you do the math, only the September 10th debate against Trump and Harris's August 22nd acceptance speech at the DNC topped the number of people that saw that interview. Notably, the Fox News interview also drew a bigger audience than the first media availability that Harris gave since becoming the Democrat nominee when she was on CNN's Dana Bash and received 6.31 million viewers. Something to take away. I don't know. It depends on what people saw from that interview. It depends, I guess, if they wanted Harris to be kind of upset at the way the questions were being asked. Because, again, she sits down at friendly places like CNN, like Stephen Colbert, like The View. So to actually get asked these questions and in a way that is actually meant to be answered seemed to throw her off her game. Another comment from a different viewer coming in last night. Frank, I'm so happy Williamsport treated you well. It did. If you didn't tune in yesterday, I went to the J.D. Vance rally in Williamsport. As a member of the press, we got to see his stump speech, got to see him, and really one of the main reasons I went was to see how he handles the press questions. If you watch one of his rallies, at the end, he'll take almost half the rally will be taking questions from the press, and it can be anything from local issues, which there were many local Williamsport issues, all the way up to national, and that's when when the media was booed when one local reporter asked about January 6th. But anyway. It was a fun time going to that rally. Continuing with what the viewer had to say, after moving up to Williamsport after my dad passed, I lived in that area for 30 years, and we were a red state back then with a good Republican governor. Our area did well before the Democrats slipped in a couple of terrible governors. The town itself managed to get a couple of Democrat mayors that just killed the area. So I hope they see the light after Mr. Vance's visit, because it's a really great place. It is a beautiful place, and just the nature of trying to find where I had to park and all those roads closed down, not knowing they were closed for Secret Service to sweep the area because they were closed with construction vehicles. So I thought it was just naturally under construction. So when I talked to one of the gentlemen asking where I should go, he said, it's right here. But the whole time I'm circling around the block seeing, as I even joked with him, getting to see the beautiful area. So I did enjoy my time in Williamsport. And that ties in to what that viewer had to say. This is from Fox News. Key Pennsylvania region, and it's not Williamsport specifically, but a key Pennsylvania region is seeing a wait list for Trump Vance signs. And lawmakers say voters are ready to reverse the Democrat policies on it. And it goes through one of these individual stories. I'm not the biggest on that, about this person had trouble and this person. But it says, below the crest of Blue Mountain lies a patchwork of woods and farmsteads in the historically Pennsylvania Dutch communities. On the horizon lies the growing, diverse footprint of Allentown, Pennsylvania's third largest city. Beyond Allentown lies mixed suburbs like, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Emmaus and Coopersburg, before again giving way to rural communities like Hosensack and Old Zionsville, the latter being the hometown of former three-term Republican Senator Pat Toomey. As Pennsylvania's friendlier economic climate draws transplants from New York and New Jersey, its farmland has been gradually replaced by residential subdivisions and corporate warehousing. All those factors combine to create what Allentown Democrat Mayor Matt Turek called the swingiest area of the perennial bellwether state. So in that area, they're seeing an uptick of people waiting on a wait list for Trump signs, which is, it's anecdotal in a way, but still very important. It ties in with the piece that we had yesterday where Democrats in Pennsylvania are upset because they believe they're being out-messaged by Trump and Vance. In Pennsylvania, as we know, many consider Pennsylvania to be a must-win if you want to be in the White House. That's why so many people raised red flags when Kamala Harris didn't pick Governor Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, instead, of course, as we know now, going with Walz. So take that for whatever it's worth in that area. They said that there's a, quote, wait list for Trump Vance signs in the county, which the Republican nominee flipped red in 2016 but lost in 2020. That's a positive sign, I guess, pun intended. Something to keep in mind. So just to tie in with what that viewer had to say, thank you very much. All right, the big news. Hamas's leader, Yahya Sinwar. I don't watch graphic videos, when they pop up and say, hey, you can watch this guy being killed. But he did weekly throw a piece of wood at an Israeli drone just moments before he was killed, according to the footage. And again, I didn't watch the footage. I'm taking Ronnie Rise from the New York Post's word for it. An Israeli drone captured Hamas chief Sinwar's last minutes alive as the October 7th mastermind, yes, he was the mastermind behind October 7th, swung a piece of wood in a futile attempt to take out the device before he was killed. Shocking footage shows the moment a drone is deployed to check a building in Rafah that a group of IDF soldiers hit on Thursday. An injured Sinwar, who had his face covered and appeared to be missing his right hand, could be seen sitting alone on a couch in the destroyed building, with the IDF soldiers unaware that they were seeing the very man they had been hunting for since he ordered the October 7, 2023 terrorist attack. When Sinwar finally notices the drone hovering just a few feet from him, he struggles using his left hand to fling an object in a last-ditch effort to keep his whereabouts hidden. The soldiers then ordered a second strike on the building, killing Sinwar and two other Hamas terrorists who were traveling with him. DNA tests have confirmed it was Sinwar. Now, of course, some in the media said, well, this was just going to escalate things more, and will this end up in the death of the hostages? An IDF spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, told reporters that Sinwar had likely been shot in his hand and taking refuge in the building when he was hit by the Israeli troops. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has stayed tough this whole time, and talk about timing on this, when recently Blinken released that letter telling them to de-escalate, or that America would withhold arms. So I think this was a little bit of Benjamin Netanyahu setting the record straight of who's in charge of this war. In a transcript released by Israel's government, Benjamin Netanyahu said 1 year ago, Yahya Sinwar, the terrorist chief of Hamas, launched the October 7th massacre against Israel. It was the bloodiest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. It was the worst attack on the Jewish state since the founding of Israel. Sinwar's terrorists murdered in cold blood 1,200 people. That's elderly people, Holocaust survivors, children. They brutally raped women. They beheaded men. They burned babies alive. And they took 251 women, men, and children hostage to the dungeons of Gaza. Today, the mastermind of this day of sheer evil is no more. Sinwar is dead. He was killed in Rafah by the brave soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces. And this is a very key takeaway, folks, this next line of where this is headed. While this is not the end of the war in Gaza, it's the beginning of the end. To the people of Gaza, I have a simple message. This war can end tomorrow. It can end if Hamas lays down its arms and returns our hostages. Hamas is holding 101 hostages in Gaza who are citizens of 23 countries, citizens of Israel, but citizens of many other countries. Israel is committed to doing everything in our power to bringing all of them home. And Israel will guarantee the safety of all those who return our hostages. But to those who would harm our hostages, I have another message. Israel will hunt you down and bring you to justice. I also have a message of hope to the people of the region. The axis of terror that was built by Iran is collapsing before our eyes. Nasrallah is gone. His deputy, Mosin, is gone. Henya is gone. Def is gone. Sinwar is gone. The region of terror that the Iranian regime has imposed on its own people and on the people of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, this too will come to an end. All those who seek a future of prosperity and peace in the Middle East should unite to build a better future. Together, we can push back the forces of darkness and create a future of light and hope for all of us. Benjamin Netanyahu, now, who was it? Leo Leibovitz for the New York Post says that Israel ignore the Democrats' warped ceasefire calls after Hamas's big death. Now, it's interesting. Oh, I'm running late. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. This isn't going to be the main focus, but there's a couple quick updates on that, and then we're going to dive into the campaigns because there's so much to discuss, and we're getting the opportunity to talk with Hornell Mayor John Buckley. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We were talking about Sinwar, the Hamas leader, the mastermind behind October 7th, now dead at the hands of Israel. And Netanyahu standing strong while others, unfortunately, in the Democrat Party calling for this to end the war. And it's kind of interesting because Kamala Harris released a statement saying, and I'm not going to read the whole statement, but saying that the United States, Israel, and the entire world are better off as a result of Israel killing the leader of Hamas. Okay, it has a full statement, but that's the crux of her statement. But what is noteworthy, and it's Senator John Barrasso from Wyoming made a very good point on this, saying the Biden-Harris administration scolded Israel for going into Rafah. Today in Rafah, Israel eliminated the leader of Hamas who orchestrated the October 7th attacks. America must fully back Israel's mission to bring the hostages home and destroy Hamas. Justice has been served. Or I'm sorry, and then that goes into the next Harris quote. Yes, if you remember, Israel was scolded going into Rafah. They were criticized by the Biden-Harris administration. Now Harris saying, and I quote, the United States, Israel, and the entire world are better off as a result. And that's why Leo Leibovitz from the New York Post says that Israel sends a message to Israel, ignore Democrats' warped ceasefire calls after Hamas's big death. Instead of agreeing to engage yet again in negotiations with two terrorist organizations, Hamas and Hezbollah, they have been brazenly violating agreements and flouting internationally imposed restrictions for decades. Netanyahu had the IDF eliminate Hezbollah's top leadership, take out its commander, Nasrallah, and make sure that Hamas's Sinwar too died like a dog. In doing so, Netanyahu and Israel taught America a lesson. Our spineless and rudderless elites desperately need to learn. Winning is possible, winning is desirable, and winning is good. True, war comes at a terrible price, but refusing to fight and insisting that diplomacy is the only acceptable route only serves to embolden our worst enemies, prolong the misery of innocent people on all sides, and ensure the war will eventually have to fight that we'll have to fight will be much deadlier. In killing Sinwar, Israel gave the world another reminder about not politics or military strategy, but basic human nature. When someone marches into your home, rapes your daughter, and burns your baby alive, the normal human response isn't to weep and then slouch towards the negotiation table. It's to pick up a gun and go seek justice. It's a sort of logic Americans inherently understand. And one more reason why so many are rejecting the defeatist and delusional policies of an administration committed to absurd abstractions rather than concrete victories. America has very real foes taking very real steps to jeopardize our national security interests. Iran first and foremost among them. Instead of kowtowing to our murderous enemies, here's hoping we take a page out of Israel's playbook and refuse to budge until they're all lying dead in the dirt. I thought that was a very powerful but important message from Leo Libovitz, who is editor-at-large for Tablet and senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, and that's a piece in the New York Post. And as Douglas Murray said, war was never going to end without the death of Hamas's leader, Sinwar, and may his nihilistic fanaticism die with him. And he ends on, I think, an important message as well. Sometime in the past year, Sinwar passed a message through the tunnels in which he said, quote, "We have the Israelis right where we want them." He didn't. But now the Israelis have Sinwar exactly in the place that he deserves. So there's our update. And just to show you how radicalized it has become of a political issue, AOC of all people, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is facing censor from the Democrat socialists. Why? Because she recognized Israel's right to exist, even though she has been hypercritical of the Hamas war. So AOC isn't extreme enough for the Democrat socialists. Local Democrat socialists may censor AOC for going too soft on Israel with alleged transgressions, including supporting the Jewish state's, and I quote, right to exist. This is what we're dealing with when the political nature of what Israel is dealing with. And that's why I think Netanyahu is obviously the right leader for the right time, saying, listen, we're not going to listen to outside forces. We're going to do what we need to do for Israel and the Israeli people first and foremost. And he's been a tough and effective leader. So there is your international update to start off the program. We're going to talk about the Harris campaign. What did you think of the Al Smith dinner? I'll be, in full disclosure, I saw clips of it. I didn't see the whole thing, just because, as you can all imagine, these bedtimes anymore during the election season, a little while. We also have a couple things here. Just in general, a few I think you're going to find interesting. A New York State update. We'll talk about that and much more. But when we come back, we'll talk about the Harris campaign. We will get into the Al Smith dinner at some point, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back looking at the beautiful Boss Security roof cam here on Marcus Street in Corning as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thanks for joining us. As I said, Hornell Mayor John Buckley will be our guest a little bit later on the program. So Kamala Harris made a pretty brutal gaffe in a speech in Wisconsin yesterday that she, quote, stood up to veterans, very reminiscent of Joe Biden's mistake, I guess, during the debate that we brought down Medicare, or we ended Medicare. It was weird. I can't remember his exact line, but it was an attack on Medicare, and Trump kind of jumped on it. I stood up to veterans and stood up for, excuse me, she said, after grimacing. Some of the crowd appeared to even groan while others laughed at the blunder. I stood up for veterans and students being scammed by big for-profit colleges, she corrected herself. Just a real quick side note there. I stood up to veterans. Just a little mistake there. Now, I don't know what you think of this, and I had quite a few people send me, and thank you anytime anybody sends me anything, but sent me this article, and this is from the New York Post specifically, but I got it from a lot of places. They hired a professional lip reader, and they had the lip reader watch President Biden and former President Barack Obama at Ethel Kennedy's funeral in Washington. And what the professional lip reader said, they said what they believe Biden or Obama said, I know this gets a little bit wonky. Biden saying, she's not as strong as me. We assume Harris. Obama saying, I know that's true. We have time. And Biden said, yeah, we'll get it in time. Moments earlier, Obama said it's important that we have some time together, in a possible reference to campaigning alongside Harris. Now, the dialogue, just for full disclosure, was translated for the New York Post by Jeremy Freeman, a London-based forensic lip reader who was born deaf and for 16 years has served as a University College London certified expert witness to litigants, the police, and journalists. Although Harris's name was not included in the transcription, it's unclear who else the conversation could have pertained to. Freeman described the conversation as very supportive and said he detected no tension between Obama and Biden. But that goes back to that thought that we've had on this program, that I've had, that for Biden to say the weakness, Biden still thinks he's, in my estimation, that he's the only one that can beat Trump because he did it before. So if Harris is to be defeated, his kind of legacy and the thought to his ego that he can say, I told you so, I think might pique his interest a little bit. The idea that if Trump wins, he can go to Nancy Pelosi, to who we have learned from Nancy Pelosi herself. They have not spoken to each other since the quote-unquote coup that brought Biden down from his re-election campaign. They have not spoken, so there's no love lost between the two. Well, Pelosi tries to say that, he's George Washington. I really wish we could talk. But could you imagine that phone call if Trump were to win that Biden could make to boost his ego to the Democrat elites saying, I told you so? Because remember, Biden, and this has been said by numerous people on all sides, that Biden has always felt kind of shunned by the Democrat elites, that they didn't believe in him and his potential. So he's kind of had a chip on his shoulder in that sense. And now you have those same, and this is before he was ousted from running for president. So now you can only imagine that anger and that rage. And it's not just him, it's his family that believes the same thing, that the elites in the Democrat Party have never fully supported their father, never trusted in their father and husband, I should say, not just Hunter, father and husband, that he has always been kind of underrated by the Democrat elites. And yet, in their mind, he proved himself by beating Trump and that he could do it again. So it would also, I believe, some have disagreed with me on this, I think it boosts his legacy in the Democrat Party. Where his legacy right now is he beat Trump. Remember, this is just what and this is what I've heard anecdotally from Democrats, but also in general, that his, and pieces in the media, that his legacy, Biden's legacy, no matter what he accomplished in the White House, didn't accomplish, that at the end of the day, he'll always be remembered as the person that defeated Trump. So that was one of the scare tactics, that if you don't leave the re-election and Trump wins, your whole legacy is shot. You are either just a footnote in history, or you're actually kind of demonized by Democrats in history, even though you have a 50-plus year career of doing everything for the Democrats that you could, being loyal. So that was the argument that they made, that your legacy. So I think if you look at it and Trump were to win, he could then say, look at his legacy and say, yeah, he was the only one that could defeat Trump. I think that just puts another feather in his cap to certain Democrats. I think it also turns some Democrats who have put up with knowing that they were voting for Bernie and that vote never really mattered. Hillary Clinton, the fix was in by the elites, had it from the beginning, so you're already kind of a little on edge. Then it kind of happens again. And then it happens with a guy that you voted for, Biden, and you voted for him to be president, and then someone gets it that you've never voted on. I would say that it could turn some of the non-elites, if you will, Democrats against the elites, saying, and I think this is very much, and the reason I say this is I think this is very much what happened with Trump on the Republican side. Republicans were sick of the party elites saying the only way we can win is with John McCain. The only way we can win is with Mitt Romney, and losing time and time again. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back was when they said the only way that we can defeat Hillary Clinton is with Jeb Bush. You remember that? And I think that was when a lot of Republicans that were sick of losing finally said, you know what? We keep going with these people that are consultants for one losing candidate and then gets hired right away to another candidate that loses. And the list keeps going on. And we're listening to them like the Bill Kristols of the world telling us that Trump's not even going to make it to Iowa. He'll be out before Christmas. And, of course, you can go through that timeline of Bill Kristol's tweets at the time and see just failed prediction after failed prediction, and yet the confidence of still getting out there and making predictions and saying this is what Trump has to do or this is what the Republicans have to do. It's fascinating to me, the ego and the narcissism of some people. But Republicans being told time and time again, the only way we can win is X, and then, of course, losing. And so it was, for lack of a better term, scorched earth, saying, okay, fine. We're going with Trump. We're going to see how this goes. We're going to be in charge this time, not the elites. And I think that could happen if Harris were to lose come November 5th. Well, when we find out the results, who knows when it'll be. But if she loses, I think the elites will say, why? Or the Democrats, the faithful Democrats will say, why do we keep listening to the elites? They told us that Hillary could win and Bernie couldn't, when Bernie's packing in rallies comparable to the size of Trump at the time. And had a ground game that was impressive because there was young people involved. So we lose there. Then because the fix was in. They never had a chance. Bernie never had a chance. Again, Democrats showing that they don't trust their voters, saying, yeah, you have fun, you keep voting. But at the end of the day, we've got this all wrapped up. Same with what happened this year. Hey, thank you for voting. You have fun. You get out there and rah-rah and go to the primaries. But at the end of the day, we get to pick who it is. It's not the person you voted for. It is someone that's never received a vote to run for president of the United States. And that, of course, is Kamala Harris. So it's an interesting dynamic. And I know we'll never know the answer to it. But it would be interesting to see Biden's thoughts right now and be a fly on the wall. Someone would ask him, what do you think if Trump wins for you personally, your ego? Will you love to have that I told you so moment and call Nancy Pelosi? Will you take the high ground and just bask in it and not have to say I told you so? I think there's something interesting there that I know I can't quite get over, and I talk about quite frequently on this program. But the coverage, and again, the Al Smith dinner, love to hear what you have to say. We haven't really talked about it yet, but we will. The coverage of Harris is, depending on where you go, is varying immensely. If you look at Mark McKinnon with Vanity Fair, now I know most of you probably don't say, let me go to Vanity Fair for my political news and updates and reasoning why I should vote or who I should vote for. But according to Mark McKinnon, this race is Kamala Harris's to lose. So it's all over but the shouting, according to Mark McKinnon. She just has to bring it into the barn, because it's hers to lose. It will all come down to turnout. And that, I predict, will mean a Harris-Walz victory, says McKinnon. In the waning stages of the late Trump era, everything and nothing is a surprise. We become immune, when you have the nominee of a major political party mentally unplugging during a town hall, stopping, answering questions, and swaying along to a Spotify list. And no one seems to blink. We're out of surprises. And we know what happened there. There's health issues in the crowd, etc. But again, if you accept the premise that it's Kamala Harris's to lose, you also have to accept the premise that this guy is going to exaggerate, take things out of context, and obviously make up things to fit his narrative. Oh, man, I know I'm running late. There's no big last debate. No tentpole events likely to shake up the race in these dwindling days. Yes, full-on war could break out in the Middle East, or another hurricane could blow ashore, wreaking havoc, and Category 5 conspiracy theories. But the reality is that if nothing or everything happens between now and November 5th, it's unlikely to change the outcome. This sucker is baked, he said. And what does that mean? Well, first of all, there aren't really any undecided voters. If you haven't figured this one out by now, chances are you are sitting out. And in fact, the oldest cliche is the oldest cliche for a reason. It all comes down to turnout. Turnout with a capital T. In other words, this election will be decided in favor of the candidate whose troops can get the most folks in the key counties in the 7 swing states to actually go to the polls. And this again, what's his name? Mark McKinnon with Vanity Fair said, I'm going to make a bold prediction here because I just don't give a darn, we'll say, if I'm wrong, even if this lives on the internet forever. Kamala Harris is going to win, maybe easily. Hear me out for a minute, he says. I'm not saying this because some of the polls we are seeing are flawed. All polling is flawed these days. How many of you have answered a political poll in the last 5 or 10 years, right? So to whom are they talking? What's more, everyone in the political establishment realizes that many of the polls come from dubiously partisan polling firms, experts, hired guns, who put their thumbs on the scale by simply publishing A flurry of inaccurate but nonetheless credible tallies designed to create the perception of an advantage and in some way trigger a bandwagon effect, believing their theoretical say-sos help sway the actual electorate. Good luck with that. Even if you give professional pollsters the benefit of the doubt that they are going above and beyond and paying the extra dime to find voters and balancing out or weighing their work appropriately, they're still modeling their numbers based on past races. So the most recent presidential election model was 2020, and people might have voted for Trump or Biden with conviction, but there weren't a ton of people excited about it. Here's why I say it's Harris's to lose. I know I'm spending too much time on this. Trump voters may be committed, but Harris voters are excited and enthusiastic. In August, the Harris-Walz ticket enjoyed an 8-point lead when it came to voter enthusiasm, and there's a big difference in the ground game. Democrats are largely paying their field workers, while Republicans are mostly relying on volunteers. These are factors not being picked up on the radar of the head-to-head polling. In addition, Trump suddenly seems not just lazy weak, by dodging another debate, for instance, and old, but also truly out of it. Okay. Finally, meanwhile, Harris looks strong and confident. Okay. Finally, there's a gender gap. Yes, Trump has an advantage with men, but I believe that in the end, the Harris gender gap with women will shatter all previous records and be record-breaking. So yes, it's coming down to turnout, of course, and while conventional wisdom may dictate that women are more enthusiastic about voting, believe me, and he talks about young men voting as well. But when it all comes out in the wash, I think women are going to do the work and save our you-know-what and our democracy. They've been doing it for centuries, so it shouldn't be a surprise. As the Eurythmics and Aretha Franklin like to say, sisters are doing it for themselves. There you go. What are your thoughts on that? We're giving you all the information, every side of the coin this morning, but we've got to take a break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. The Boss Security Roof Cam. Call Boss Security in Horseheads today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. A couple of messages from viewers. First off, to the gentleman who called in, I don't understand quite what you're asking. We don't take calls live on the air. We just can't with the nature of the equipment. But if you have a message you want me to read, like the other comments, please feel free to leave a voicemail. I know that you gave your number. I can try to reach out later. But if that's what you want to do, if you want to talk about the program or something we said, love to hear from you. If it's about, because I can't hear, I just read the transcript. So if it's about running for office and you want to get on the show, something like that, please leave a voicemail, explain what it is, and I'll do my best to kind of decipher it. Thank you for that. And I think it was Steve. So thank you. Next up, I don't understand why people can't see the forest for the trees. The Democrat Party has more in common with dictatorship nations and leaders than the American people. They defend them and threaten nations for protecting themselves, like we see with Israel. They don't allow nations in war to go on offenses because it might have a positive outcome. When they promise their war buddy contracts and money, they have to keep their promises. If Trump gets in, that all ends for them. Thank you very much for that comment. Next up, anyone who watched the dinner last night, yes, the Al Smith dinner, did you watch it? They might have actually learned some things they might not have known. The jokes were actually truths. It must have killed some Democrats to hear. Also, there's some criticism. I guess there's some praise, too, to be fair. But some criticism of the pre-taped video that Kamala Harris did. Again, I would love to hear your thoughts if you watched it. Next up, I pray the current Democrat administration calms the country in the event Trump wins and accepts a new administration without provoking their followers to riot. If they choose to incite, then they should no longer throw stones at January 6th instead of continuing to push the do as I say, not as I do rhetoric. And this is a very, very important point that this viewer makes. I feel this country's stress level is on a hair trigger. Let's all pray for the best outcome for the country. I agree. And again, to the viewer who left a voicemail, I will try to do my best to get a hold of you, but please call back and let me know if it's something you want me to say on the air or what it pertains to. Thank you. Okay. I see another comment coming in. I didn't have a chance to read it. We'll get to it after the break. Do you want to talk? I have. Man, we're running late. There's a really okay. Sorry, I'm struggling here because there's so much to get to, and I can't wait to talk to John Buckley here in a little bit. And I know we're going to run out of time, but I don't want to get through everything because we'll have a little time in the next hour. Here's your New York State update, but it's also a Harris update. According to Empire Report, and they have a link, and I forgot where the link goes to, but it is to an article. And what we are learning is Vice President Harris's transition team. Okay, we're learning about that in this article. Hochul, yes, Governor Hochul's aides have reached out to express her interest in a potential position, said a person familiar with the efforts. Now, a spokesman for the governor's office said this was false and that she is not interested. Interesting to put that in a piece, that Governor Hochul's aides have reached out to express an interest for Governor Hochul to serve in a potential position in the Harris campaign in the Harris presidency if she were to win. Keep that in mind. And then that ties in with, what did I do with it? That ties in with the fact that the governor, our governor, will be in, I think it was Michigan. I got all my papers out of order. I believe she is going to be in Michigan to campaign for Harris. So there may be a little bit more to that than that piece is letting on, and I can't find the exact location in case you wanted to see it. For whatever reason, I got lost in my paperwork. But yes, Governor Hochul will be campaigning for Harris in, again, I believe it was Michigan. I got all out of order here. And there it is. Thank goodness. There it is. On Friday, October 18th, so it's today if you're interested in going, Governor Hochul will join the Blue Wall Bus Tour in western Michigan. Governor Hochul will rally with Democrat governors and meet with grassroots Harris Wall supporters to get out the vote ahead of the election. So some are saying that her aides are reaching out, that she wants to be a part of the Harris administration if Harris is to win, but her office denying that was ever said. Keep that in mind. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. What's your thoughts on that? Keep that in mind, that would mean Harris, or that would mean Hochul would have to step down, I believe. Right? So just keep that in mind, too. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Our beautiful view of Market Street coming from the Boss Security roof cam. Boss Security in Horse, give them a call today. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. I got the message. Thank you very much from the Jack and Bob days. Now, thank you for leaving that message. Yes, Jack and Bob, my first bosses in radio back at WCBA and others at the time that I started working there. Miss both of them. Haven't forgot my time with them. My first bosses back. I started radio the day after the September 11th terrorist attacks. And started up on Davis Road. So it's nice to hear from you, and I understand, and this is why the gentleman called. It's what he sees in the city of Corning after living in Corning for nearly 80 years. It's quite appalling, and it has to do with the silent demise of production and manufacturing from Corning Inc. and others. Yes, thank you very much for the message, and I know there's been talks of that on this program before, people leaving messages about the homelessness issue as well, that coming just a few days ago, and some, obviously, we talked about it with the sheriff, not just as it pertains to Corning, but just in our area in general when it comes to, unfortunately, the drug epidemic, the mental health epidemic, on and on. So thank you for that message. It was nice to think about Jack and Bob this morning. A blast from our local history past. Thank you. I still have my Crystal College of Musical Knowledge shirt that I've saved all these years, if you recall that. All right. It's good to hear from you. Moving along here, I want to make a couple quick announcements because I'm running just a tad bit late. And we do have Hornell Mayor John Buckley on the program coming up in the next hour. On Monday's show, we're going to be talking with Corning Community College because they have an open house coming up on October 26th from 9 to noon. So we want to highlight that for you. That'll be Monday. On Tuesday, we're going to be talking with Chemung County Court, Family Court candidate for judge, Brian Maggs. That's on, I don't know why I jumped out of order. Monday, CCC. I wrote it weird. Tuesday, we're going to learn about the days of incandescence here on Market Street in the Gaffer District, which is coming up next week. Wednesday, Brian Maggs running for Chemung County Family Court Judge. And Thursday, also running for that position, Mary Tarantelli. She's going to be our guest as well on Thursday as guests from a Walk for Life campaign here in Corning. And then on Friday, yes, it's Phil Friday. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. And that's just the skeleton outline right now. There will be people filling in because we still have a lot of candidates that I am waiting to get set in stone. So keep that in mind, that it is going to be a busy couple of weeks. So you're going to want to tune in every morning because it's not just the candidates. It's also a lot of community events going on right now. And that's what we're all about here, being a part of the community and giving, hopefully, a microphone to community members like all of you that reach out and either want to talk about the issues of the day, or you want to bring up good memories, like in that case, or if you want to have come on the show for your charity, or if you're running for office. Okay, what did you think of the Al Smith dinner? Again, we mentioned earlier that CNN had a headline, Kamala Harris versus Fox News. Okay, how about this? Trump insults, think of the loaded word there. Trump insults Harris at Al Smith dinner while she barnstorms Wisconsin and mocks his father of IVF claims. And yes, it does turn out into a whole piece about Harris doing great, Trump doing bad. By the way, he went after, why am I reading CNN's? I'm not going to do too many of the quotes because I'm sure many of you have seen them. But Trump took his jabs. If you really wanted Vice President Harris to accept your invitation, I guess you should have told her the funds were going to bail out the looters and rioters in Minneapolis. And she would have been here, guaranteed. She would have been here, guaranteed. I must say I was shocked when I heard that Kamala was skipping the Al Smith dinner. I'd really hope that you could come because we can't get enough of hearing her beautiful laugh. She laughs like crazy. The Al Smith dinner was launched back in 1946. You know all about that. He mentioned, he had some good lines. I wish I had them all written out here for you, but I don't like falling into the quotes. Now, Harris did release a video that they played with a blast from the past, I guess would be the way to call it, Molly Shannon as a character of the Catholic student Mary Catherine Gallagher. I don't know. I don't want to say my thoughts on it. I'll say whatever you think of that clip. Some of the things I've read, cringeworthy, not really funny. But whatever you think, I will read. Now, Archbishop Timothy Dolan said this year will be in balance because sadly Kamala Harris isn't coming. It's a shame because the nature of the evening is to bring people together. The nature of the evening is civility, patriotism, honor, or humor. It's not a campaign speech. It's not a campaign stop. Now, according to Harris's campaign, she could not make it because she was in battleground states that day. Even Jim Gaffigan, who is a liberal comedian, he even made fun of Harris for not attending. We're going to talk more about it. I'm running late. I know the show goes fast every day, but Friday just seems even quicker, doesn't it? Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Boss Security roof camera. Contact Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. We were talking about the Al Smith dinner. What was your thoughts last night? Kamala Harris was unable to attend. She was campaigning. Some people have been critical of the video that she sent in. Cool. In the next hour, because we're wrapping up, Ken has written in and give his thoughts on the Al Smith dinner. Donald Trump, according to Deanna Glebova from New York Post, obliterates Kamala Harris, Biden, and de Blasio in a scorching Al Smith dinner roast. No one was safe from the former president's zingers at the Al Smith dinner as he panned Vice President Harris for skipping out, roasted New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Was Eric Adams in the crowd? Because that takes some courage. And as I mentioned, the joke about if you would have said the funds were going to looters and rioters in Minneapolis, she would have attended. The former president quipped that Harris is actually out, quote, receiving communion from Gretchen Whitmer. If you're not familiar with that reference, there is a really awkward video and why Gretchen Whitmer ever agreed to do this, but the Michigan governor appearing in a bizarre viral video feeding a Dorito to a social media influencer who was on her knees to make it look like it was communion. The Republican nominee slammed Harris for being disrespectful to Catholics and compared her to Mondale, who also skipped the dinner and went on to only win his home state in the race against Ronald Reagan. He also joked, picked on, if you will, many other people in the crowd, including Mayor Adams. Trump wished good luck to the Big Apple mayor, who is under federal indictment on federal corruption and bribery charges. The former commander-in-chief also warned that second gentleman Doug Emhoff shouldn't be allowed near nannies, which is Emhoff recently announced he had an affair in his first marriage to their nanny. Trump said there's a group called White Dudes for Harris, but I'm not worried about them. Their wives and their wives' lovers are voting for me. Whoa. He slammed Senator Chuck Schumer. But look on the bright side, Chuck. Considering how woke your party has become, if Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president. Wow. This is, yeah, Trump, I will say, going back to, think about back in 2016 when it was Trump and Hillary, and they were both at the Al Smith dinner. And I'll be the first to admit that I'm a sucker for these things, the White House Correspondents' Dinner and, celebrities roasting each other. I'm just a sucker for roasts in general, the Dean Martin roast and all that. So I do like these. And Hillary got a couple good zingers in there. But there was some criticism of Trump at the time because they had said that he went too political with it, and that wasn't normally the case. But and I don't know where he gets his jokes. I don't know if there is a comedian behind the scenes that helps him, but he does hit with some real big ones. And especially with, in this case, it was a good night. And again, Harris not being able to make it. I had mentioned Jim Gaffigan joined in the fun and poked fun at President Biden, saying the Biden family are secret Trump voters after his own party forced him out. Hey, maybe Jim Gaffigan's been watching the program. President Biden couldn't be here tonight. The DNC made sure of that, said Gaffigan. Anyway, we'll talk more about it, but I want to hear your thoughts. Ken has weighed in. We'll talk about that in the top of the hour, and then we're going to hear from Hornell City Mayor, the city of Hornell Mayor. Any way you want to say it, John Buckley. So stay with us. Hour number 1 of Frankly Speaking in the books. We'll be right back. This is WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us. We will have Hornell Mayor John Buckley in just a moment. This coming from Ken on the Al Smith dinner. We saw the Harris weird SNL-style video and then her disingenuous praise of the Catholic Church and their good work. And most of Trump, he did a good job stating facts and pairing them with comedy. The best show was watching Schumer's face going from sneering and frowning to smiles and laughter, depending on who Trump was talking to or was talking about. When it comes to the video, it has been it has been described as cringe, if you use that term. It was an awkward video. I didn't know she was going to do the video. I was not aware of that, but she did have the video. Even Jim Gaffigan, who I believe is a supporter of Harris and is politically active, said he didn't even know what the noise the audience was making was. It was almost like an ah. He says, as I watched that, meaning the video, I couldn't help but think of how I know how my kids felt. I now know how my kids felt when I FaceTimed into a piano recital that they were at. That's kind of a funny line, isn't it? But supporters, because we give all sides on this program, supporters of Harris lauded the video on social media as a must-watch video. So anyway, what did you think of last night's Al Smith dinner? We're not going to focus on that much more. You heard some of the major jokes from Trump, but I would like to hear your opinion because your opinion is one that matters the most. Going back to the Harris campaign, tying this all in together because she was out on the campaign trail, and that's why she could not make the Al Smith dinner. Some speculate there's many different reasons. Number one, kind of the trying to use humor may not be one of her strong suits. Also, the laugh that so many people have criticized, really on both sides. But we want to look at the nitty-gritty of what's going on in her campaign. Betsy McKay, the former, what was she, lieutenant governor, I believe? Yes, of New York. She says Kamala Harris is rushing to fix a growing hole in her support, which is black men. She's talked about that. Barack Obama has talked about that. She's trying to buy their votes with thinly veiled taxpayer-funded giveaways, according to Betsy McKay. Fully forgivable $20,000 loans, she says, aren't meant just for them. The money can be used to purchase a van for a catering business, buy professional hairstyling equipment and chair space for a barbershop. This is all direct quotes. Buy lawnmowers and tools for a landscaper and more, according to a statement from her campaign. If you're a white male and having trouble growing your business, will you be eligible? The U.S. Constitution says you should be, but Harris appeared to be doubling down on the notion, increasingly unpopular with the public and now widely challenged in court, that certain benefits should be reserved only for minorities for the sake of equity. She promised $1 million loans up to $20,000 apiece to, quote, black entrepreneurs and others who have historically faced barriers to starting a new business or growing an existing business. That language suggests white men won't be eligible because the phrase historically faced barriers is one like historically underserved and socially disadvantaged that has a specific meaning in the federal code. They're shorthand for eligibility based on group identity, not on hardships an individual applicant has faced. 2 days later, an unnamed Harris aide tried to walk the promise back, telling the Wall Street Journal that the program, announced with such hoopla, would be open to everyone. Of course, what is said on the campaign trail by an anonymous flunky is one thing. Congress would have to actually pass a law authorizing spending billions on forgivable loans to aspiring entrepreneurs. So what this boils down to, she says, it's vote buying. This is Betsy McKay, the former lieutenant governor of New York, saying that it is vote buying, trying in a divisive, unconstitutional equity scheme. After decades in which reverse discrimination created resentment and racial tensions, Americans are finally making strides towards the society our Constitution promises, one in which people are treated as individuals, not pigeonholed according to their group identity. But Harris just doesn't get it. She would be the equity president. And that ties in. We learn that Biden has approved, if you have not heard this by now, Biden has approved $175 billion in student loan forgiveness. Perfect timing. Even though these have been thrown out of court time and time again, with less than 3 weeks before the November election, the Biden-Harris administration is reminding voters how it has delivered a historic amount of student debt relief, even as Republicans have challenged several of its efforts in court and balked at the cost. Another round of forgiveness was announced yesterday, folks, bringing the total amount of student loan cancellation to more than $175 billion for nearly 5 million people since President Joe Biden took office. Wow, $175 billion for 5 million people. That's roughly equal to 11% of all outstanding federal student loan debt. What is intriguing about this, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to buy certain votes, maybe younger people like that. But let me ask you, if you're someone from Pennsylvania and you've been working very hard, you maybe right out of high school, don't have a college degree, do you really want to be buying or paying, I should say, for somebody else's college degree? Or let's say you paid off your own degree and now you're paying for somebody else's as a taxpayer, or maybe you saved up so that you could pay for your kids' college education. You did that, and now so many others are receiving this student loan forgiveness. I don't think this plays to the quote-unquote middle-class type arena that Harris talks about so often. But more than 1 million of these student loan borrowers received debt relief through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which promises loan forgiveness to public sector workers like teachers and nurses after they made 10 years of qualifying payments. Biden said in a statement, for too long, the government failed to live up to its commitments, and only 7,000 people have ever received forgiveness under public service forgiveness before Vice President Harris and I took office. We vowed to fix that. Now, Harris has vowed to fight for more student loan relief after the legal setbacks. So again, as we near Election Day, 3 weeks, a little under, right? 3 weeks, the president and Kamala Harris have approved another $175 billion in student loan forgiveness. And this ties in with a piece from Peggy Noonan saying the Oprah phase and the Trump danger. Kamala Harris focuses on gifts for voters and should take more seriously the threat to the Constitution. Yes, because she has not brought up the threat to democracy enough, or January 6th, or et cetera, according to Peggy Noonan. And what her argument really boils down to is, I don't understand why Ms. Harris hasn't made concessions to the moderates, because what she's saying is Kamala Harris is focusing on gifts for voters, right? So that's where the Oprah phrase line comes from. I don't understand why Ms. Harris hasn't made concessions to the moderate Republicans and conservatives whose votes she needs. Why not tell them she knows their stands and views and is willing to concede to the need for a greater centrism, especially on issues where the political and cultural left have demanded too much and alienated regular Americans? Why should Republicans who vote for her and whom she needs to win be the only ones bending? Why not make it easier for them? Why not say she sees them and understands they've given up long-held views? Why not say she'll give them more than a temporary home? She'll do everything to make them comfortable there. But I mean, is that what she's trying to do with Liz Cheney? Maybe, I'm not sure. If she were fully sincere about the threat Mr. Trump poses, wouldn't she have pulled the cord of the compromise alarm by now? Her party would let her. They're desperate to win, and it would convey that she has some mastery over them. And each day passes, more eyes train on the race. You can say big things at the end. You can say big things at the end. So she's saying enough of the giveaways like we just learned about the student loan forgiveness, et cetera, et cetera. Focus on the threat to democracy from Donald Trump. Focus on trying to make it easier for Republicans and conservatives who don't like Trump to vote for her, suggesting that she's making them bend over backwards while not bending herself at all to get them to vote for her. Your thoughts on that? When we come back, we're going to be talking with our good friend, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Keep those comments coming in. What did you think of the Al Smith dinner? What do you think of Trump's campaign, as we have focused on that this morning, as well as the Harris campaign? But the Al Smith dinner, kind of a highlight, you could say, of the presidential year as a rule. This, of course, was just with Trump in person and Harris sending in that video. So I would ask you that as well. What did you think of the video? Also, quickly, don't forget tonight is the Prepare to Cast Your Vote special here on Big Fox. It'll air at 11:30 tonight on Big Fox, but on our sister station, WJKP, it will air at 7 o'clock. I would love to hear what you have to say about that. Also, a quick couple of public service announcements. Don't forget, it's not too late to get your book to be prepared for tomorrow's museum trail walk. You can go over to the Corning Public Library. And what is happening is this weekend, the 19th and the 20th, you can get into all the local Steuben County museums. There's your handy pocket-ish sized. And inside it'll show you the history of the museums, the map, the trail. And you can visit all these museums for free, and some museums that aren't open all the time, but they will be tomorrow. So you can head over and get a gigantic map, this one, or for the kids, a coloring book of the historical museums along Steuben County, and they will be open to the public this weekend. And we talked with our friend from Steuben County, the Steuben County historian Griffin Bates, about it. And he said the Museum Trail Weekend is an opportunity to connect with your local community history. All 20 plus museums will be open on October 19th from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. and October 20th from noon to 5. This is your chance to visit an unfamiliar museum near you and or visit museums that have limited hours during the year. Admission to these museums will be free. So don't forget, that is coming up this weekend. And per our guests yesterday on the program, don't forget that it is the Human Trafficking Awareness Walk for Freedom, coming up tomorrow at noon. Tomorrow at noon, right in Centerway Square. Don't miss out on that. Keep the comments coming in. We'll be back with John Buckley, Mayor of Hornell, when we come back. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and joining me in the Zoom version of that Hesselson studio, Mayor John Buckley. Hey, John, thanks for being back on the program.
Thanks for having me, Frank, and what a gorgeous day it is here in the city of Hornell and throughout Steuben County.
Of course. And, you know, we didn't even talk about this off the air at all, but I know what the biggest story affecting Hornell is right now. I've heard about it from numerous people, and that is your new Tim Hortons.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Tim Hortons just opened up this past, actually they had their soft opening a couple weeks ago, and their grand opening and ribbon cutting this past week. And, the huge crowd turned out for it. The parking lot's packed on a daily basis, and they are off to the races. Community is really rallied around it and look forward to it. And we certainly welcome them to the business community. You know, Frank, it's always a nice thing, and I think a commentary on your community and how well your community is doing when the business owner picks up the phone and calls you and says, hey, I want to come to Hornell and open up my business and create jobs.
Isn't that great?
That's a great problem to have.
Yeah. And it's funny that when the news of that opening trickled down to me on a personal level, people coming up and go, did you hear? Hornell got a tip. And so I thought that was very interesting. I felt like I was in the know on what's going on in Hornell directly. How are things going besides that big news? How are things going in Hornell?
Things are on the upswing. We're finishing up some of our DRI projects, the $10 million downtown revitalization initiative projects. We just finished our streetscapes and an alleyway project. We've got some public art components to that. We've got a wayfinding component as well. So we're largely complete. We actually, this past Saturday, we had our fall festival. So we just wrapped up all the brand new sidewalks and bump outs and all those things just in the nick of time.
Perfect.
To have the fall fest, and we had thousands of people descend on our downtown. We block off the downtown portion of Main Street and Broadway. I think we had over 100 vendors, food vendors, crafts, games and bounce houses, things for the kids and really things for people of all ages. And, it was all day. Mother Nature, blessed us with some beautiful weather on Saturday, and just in the nick of time because Sunday wasn't so nice.
No. Well, it's that time of year.
Yeah, just a great time all the way around. For the downtown, and a great way to showcase off, all the improvements and all the investment that we've had in our downtown. But going back to the DRI, Frank, that's really table setting. Taking care of the downtown, the new sidewalks, and creating all these things. Making the downtown more walkable, more attractive.
Right.
It's really table setting in a sense because you want to make your downtown more attractive and try to attract more entrepreneurs and more businesses to the downtown. And that's what we're trying to do.
And that must have went very smoothly because I think the last time we talked, the project was just beginning.
Yeah. So in my State of the City address, back at the beginning of the year in January, I declared that this would be the year of construction, in our downtown, and it was.
Yes.
We're through it now, but not only did we have the $4+ million project in our downtown, but we had about a $1.4 million project at our largest park, which is Veterans Memorial Park at James Street, and down there, we replaced the tennis courts. We added 6 pickleball courts, which have been just bustling with activity. Mm-hmm. We demolitioned the old baby pool, and we put a more fun interactive splash pad on there where the kids are enjoying that or enjoyed it throughout the summer months. We replaced our basketball courts, made improvements to the pool house, added new playground equipment, new lighting around. Just the past couple of weeks, Frank, we added 27 new trees to the park.
Wow.
So Hornell is a tree city USA. We have the nickname, the moniker Maple City. We're certainly living up to that. We planted a record number of trees this year alone. And, and all these things, why do we do all these things? We do these things to create more recreational opportunities for our residents, sure. Get people outdoors, enjoying things, whether it's pickleball or just, going for walks or bike rides, just creating those opportunities and getting people out and making, more things to do.
And that also points to what you were talking about with the Fall Festival. There's one thing that Hornell, I think, is synonymous with are these kind of fall, these festivals, parades, and just having community get-togethers. And on this program, we talk about that a lot, getting community involved. And sadly, we're at a time in this country where the polls show people are kind of losing faith in community and losing faith with the whole neighborhood idea. And so it's nice to have people with initiatives like you do to say, hey, let's get together as a community. We're a tight-knit community, and let's all be friends, right?
Yeah, that's a big part of what we do here is placemaking, building that sense of community. Just this past year, we created Union Square Park, which is in our downtown. And has a stage, has electricity and benches and a fountain, and we had a concert series there, a Thursday night concert series, all summer long, and I tell you, every Thursday night the park was packed. We had some food vendors and some craft vendors set up, different music for everyone. We had some kind of like teenage
Sure.
type nights. We had some stuff, classic rock. We had at one point we had a 16-piece orchestra,
Oh, wow.
like a big band style orchestra.
Yeah.
Something for everyone. But every Thursday it was packed down there. We have other events planned throughout the year. In December, we'll have our second annual Christmas at the Square concert.
Right.
The high school show and jazz choirs will perform along with some other local artists. We did it last year for the first time, and it was just absolutely amazing. Music under the stars.
Yeah.
We decorate it. Hey, I got to get you over to Hornell sometime
I know.
during the Christmas season.
I am.
Literally turn our downtown into a scene from a Hallmark movie.
Oh, perfect.
It's great. We add to it every year.
I will definitely come down for that. Also, let's not talk about Christmas. It's too soon to talk about Christmas. What do you think? Did you ever imagine a time where we would be talking about pickleball? It came out of like nowhere. It's so popular. Here in Corning, they have it in the Civic Center, and you can hear the ball going all day.
Yeah, it's really exploded in popularity over the last several years, and I had some friends that had started to talk about it, and kind of asked, well, hey, when are we going to have pickleball courts at Hornell? And so, we're looking to do a project at one of our parks, and we'll make sure to keep it in mind, and we'll try to include it. And that was several years ago when we were in the planning phase, and now they've got tournaments all over the place, and other communities and other states. It's just exploded. My wife and I have always enjoyed playing tennis, and going back to my younger days, I've always loved playing tennis. Yeah. And I guess the best way to describe pickleball for those who don't play it or aren't familiar with it, it's somewhere between tennis and ping pong. Right. Pickleball, right? Right. Yeah. It's a fun game. We went out last year and bought a set of paddles and balls and went down with our daughters and played down at the park on the tennis courts. And but now, after the project, we've got six pickleball courts just for pickleball, and it's just amazing. We have organized groups that come down on a daily basis and play. It's really something.
And there's some of those guys that are cutthroat. They don't mess around when it comes to pickleball.
And some of the most hardcore players are seniors.
Oh yeah, and by where I live, there's a tennis court, and they're there morning, noon, and night.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. It's great activity. It's great exercise, and but again, it's getting people together and enjoying the great outdoors, and just enjoying each other's company, and maybe get a little competitive at the same time.
Exactly. You know what's weird, and people are shocked when I say this. We actually had pickleball in my gym class in high school. Isn't that wild? Because everybody thinks, like myself included in a way, the popularity of it, that it just came out of nowhere. I don't want to talk all pickleball, but it's interesting. So I played it back in high school. I couldn't remember how to play if you put a gun in my head right now. But what else? You're talking about the projects that were successful, and that's great to hear. What do you got in the works coming up? Anything?
Oh yeah, so we've got some playground equipment that we just ordered. So we're actually building another playground. So we have Little League, our Little League park.
Okay.
It's in the second ward of the city, and the Little League park has historically had like a little section in the corner of the parking lot where it's been like this one lonely basketball hoop. And I'm looking at that a year ago. I'm thinking, we could do better. Mm-hmm. We could do a lot better than that. So our guys at the DPW, they're going to tear all that out, and we've ordered some playground equipment, and we're basically going to make a little pocket playground for the neighborhood, because the Little League kind of sits in the middle of a neighborhood, and it'd be just a great addition, not just for the neighborhood kids, but for those who bring their kids to play Little League. Sometimes they have younger siblings that want to go play on the playground or have a little fun. So just adding little things like that, Frank, I think make an impact, in your community and certainly in the neighborhoods. Sure.
And I love this. The conversation is about community, because you're doing things that I think, not to go back to this, but COVID opened our eyes for a lot of things, right? You talk about all you're doing for playground equipment like that, where we realize it's not all about being on your computer all day. It's about getting out, enjoying nature, enjoying life while we can. So it's so great to see these initiatives where you are bringing the community together, but also you're making things that are fun. It's not just about this festival or that. It's just the community building up together. And I got to say kudos to you.
Well, I appreciate that, and being a mayor of any city, village, doesn't matter. You have you always have challenges, whether it's infrastructure, whether, employees, hiring, retention, vehicle replacement, all those things. And we're tackling them all.
Right.
And we've had a lot of success over the last several years. But, one of my main focuses, especially over the last several years, has been on, building community, building that sense of community, creating those opportunities, investing in our parks and, doing those things. On the north end of the city, we have our beautiful Shawmut Park. We actually have an application in through the CFA process, the consolidated funding applications through the state to do an addition on our skate park. We have a really nice skate park over at Shawmut, and but it's on a big cement slab, and only half of it is full. The other half is just basically empty. So we have an application in to basically double the size of our skate park. And,
that's great.
And over the years, whether you skateboard or ride bikes or scooters or whatever it is, we have a lot of folks from out of town, from Dansville, from Wellsville, from Wayland, from all points, Alfred, come down and use our skate park. So, just investing in the parks and, making more opportunities and creating that, I think just creates a lot more energy. And to touch on your point, put the phone down, put the tablet down, get off the computer, get out and enjoy the great outdoors and, get some exercise and enjoy yourself.
I couldn't agree more. Just before we go, and we're going to talk in another break, get into some political stuff. But before that, we've been talking about, we had the sheriff on yesterday. We've been talking about these illegal pot shops and sticker stores. And I'm wondering if that's been a scourge for you in Hornell like it has been in Corning.
Absolutely not. So the city of Hornell, the Common Council opted out of that, and knock on wood, we haven't had a single issue with the sticker shops.
Good for you.
I know, following the news, talking with Sheriff Allard, who does a wonderful job for Steuben County residents, talking to DA Brooks Baker, it's been a problem. It's been a problem throughout the county. It's been a problem throughout the state. But luckily here in the city of Hornell, we have not had that.
That's so great. Good for you.
Hopefully it'll continue that way.
Right, and by not opting in, and so many people had said at the time, don't opt in because then you can't opt out. But if you opt in, you can learn, because at the time, let's face it, that was Cuomo. They didn't know what they were doing, obviously. And if you would have just waited, not you, if others would have just waited a little bit longer, they would have seen these other towns affected and said, thank heavens we didn't opt in.
And that was our approach from the get-go.
Yeah.
New York State is famous for, we want to be first.
Yes.
We don't know what we're doing, but we'll worry about the details later.
Exactly.
Right? Let's just jump in and then things go sideways. It goes haywire, and then they're trying to fix things or correct things. So we took a conservative approach, and we wanted to just sit on the sidelines and see how it played out. And honestly, and you touched on it, there have been a lot of problems, a lot of things that they've had to iron out, and still are, by the way.
Yes, you've been vindicated in that decision, let me tell you. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and joining me this morning is Mayor John Buckley. John, before we talk about the kind of political season as it is that we're in the middle of, let's talk about, I think, an initiative that is very important that you and Mayor Boland work together on. Tell us about this with mental health.
Yeah, so mental health problems have been just exploding in recent years, to the point where our police department is so occupied dealing with mental health issues that it takes them away from some of their traditional policing roles, such as traffic control and things of that nature.
Right.
So Mayor Boland and I have been discussing the issue, and as leaders of the two largest municipalities in Steuben County, we got together. Pooled resources. We actually went over to a recent county legislature meeting and basically asked the county to consider hiring more staff, and then embedding 2 social workers, one each in the city of Corning and the city of Hornell, to help assist our police departments dealing with some of these mental health issues.
Great idea.
And as there's a lot of factors that go into it, but unfortunately there's not a lot of facilities and a lot of help out there to deal with these things. And police officers, they do the best that they can. They do a wonderful job, but by trade they're not social workers. They're not psychiatrists. They're not they don't have training in those roles, although they certainly have adapted and and continue to address those the best they can. But having that additional help would go a long way. So we're actively talking with county officials, and they've been, to their credit, they've been very open to it.
And it's not something we can ignore as residents of the community, because it is getting more prevalent, as we are all aware, and something needs to be done. But I'm going to change topics here completely, if you don't mind. Let's talk a little bit about campaign season. An election nears October 26th, early voting. Of course, November 5th, you vote in person. What do you see on the ground there in Hornell? What's going on? You guys are the ones that got all the signs. You're the ones that have the Republican headquarters, I keep hearing. I'm three doors down from the Democrat headquarters here, and you guys in Hornell are sitting flush.
Yeah. Hornell is the center of gravity in Steuben County. What can I tell you, Frank? That's where all the action is. We do have the headquarters down on Main Street, and they've pumped out, thousands of signs. It seems like when I talk to the folks that are staffing it, they're just constantly running out of signs, and having to go back to the campaigns and ask for more and then order more. So good problem to have.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
But I believe that Hornell is the main distribution point in the entire county, if not the region, because I know talking to the folks that are working down there, they're getting people from Allegheny County, from Livingston County, all over the place. It's not just here in Steuben, but right. As soon as the signs come in, they're basically out the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you seeing at the local level? I know there's some obviously judicial races that have a major importance, both the Supreme Court and at the county level. What do you see on the ground? What are your opinions?
I think there's a lot of energy on the, certainly on the conservative and Republican side. Mm-hmm. Judges are more important than ever, Frank. Yeah. I can't, a lot of times when you have a presidential race, as we do this year, the presidential race tends to suck most of the oxygen out of the room. Mm-hmm. But all those down ballot races are just so important.
Yeah.
Whether it's your local judge, your congressman, your assembly person, or whoever it is, those races are important. Yeah. And so we try not to lose focus. We've got a great team in place here. From Congressman Nick Langworthy to Senator Tom O'Mara, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We have a wonderful team, and the nice thing about our team is they work together. And I can't tell you over the years how many conversations, phone conferences I've had with our congressman, our senator, our assemblyman, even our neighboring assemblywoman Marjorie Burns, who represented Hornell for a time, but we certainly keep her in the mix. But we work as a team, we coordinate, certainly on the constituent side, and I can speak to that, where there's certain things that'll come across my desk, a constituent concern or an issue, and sometimes my office will act as a conduit and get them in touch with that agency or representative on the federal or state level to try to get them assistance. So from my standpoint, it's great having those connections. It's great to be in a position where you can help people. But we do have great folks in those positions, and I'm happy to support them.
Yes, and did you? And I know this isn't in your area specific, but I think it's worth mentioning. Of course, our mutual friend Joe Sempolinski running for assembly. I think that's pretty exciting. The weirdest trajectory ever: Congress to assembly. Next he's going to be gunning for your job, mayor.
Well, he lives in the neighboring village.
Oh, that's
so
right.
I think we're okay there. But Joe does a great job. Just the consummate team player. Wonderful person, so knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Anyone who ever spends some time with Joe, discussing the state of affairs in the country or the state, Joe has a very deep understanding of the issues of the inner workings, how the sausage is made, and and how to get things done. Yeah. And he's been very effective in every role that he's held, and I know he'll make a wonderful assemblyman.
Yes. And just at the national level, just real quickly, it's interesting being where we are so close to the Pennsylvania border, and some of that trickles over, right? The signs that maybe New Yorkers go over across the border, but the commercials, I went yesterday because there's so many rallies, and I'm a political person. So yesterday was a rally in Williamsport 2 days ago with J.D. Vance, right? So we went to that, and who knows what other Tim Walz might be the next. It's interesting to see how vital Pennsylvania, our neighbor, is going to be in this race.
Yeah, PA is huge. So there's this race will come down to a handful of swing states,
Yeah.
as we all know.
Yeah.
PA is smack dab right in the middle of that.
Yeah.
My daughter goes to college in Pennsylvania,
Oh.
so when we go down and visit, it's impossible not to see it, not to
Yeah.
feel it. I will say the Trump signs are
Everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere in Pennsylvania, and I'm not just talking about yard signs. I'm talking about billboards,
Mm-hmm.
Large signs, and businesses and front yards on the sides of the road. Everywhere you go, I'd say it's probably at least in my travels, 8-2, 9-1
Yeah.
ratio as far as what I'm seeing, and the energy is electric.
Yes.
So.
And I know the New York Post had reported the other day that some Democrats in Pennsylvania are upset because they don't believe the message is getting out clearly for Harris. And looking at the J.D. Vance rally, they are kind of dominating the news cycle and dominating the conversation. And I think that's a place where they want to be right now.
And I don't know what message Harris really has. I think her messaging is somewhat muddled. I think she's very evasive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You probably watched that Brett Baer interview last night.
Mm-hmm.
She basically tried to evade the questions. Tried to pin her down on the border. And, she keeps on saying, well, we had this bill and, the Republicans rejected it. But really, if you're talking about the border, Frank, all you had to do if you were Biden and Harris was do nothing.
Yeah,
right?
the easiest thing you could do.
Just leave the policies in place that were working, and they mucked it up.
Mm-hmm.
By executive order, they got rid of them. They opened it up wide open and created all this chaos. And then they turn around and say, well, it's someone else's fault.
I know.
But I think everyone knows better.
And I think she's been struggling with that message because, it's hard to be in a job for 3.5 years and one day, if you looked at it with Brett Baer, originally in an interview, she's 100%. Everything Biden did was her, and now the distancing. And it just seems to be I think to the Democrats' point in Pennsylvania, it's just a tough message to sell.
It is. When you're in a position like that, and you can't answer a simple question, that's a problem, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to evade questions, it's not a good look.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're a mayor, you're a governor, or you're running for president, you've got to be able to, look at the camera, look at the interviewer, and if they ask you a question, just give them an honest answer.
That's all it takes.
Tell them how you feel, even if you don't agree with it.
Right.
At least just be honest. And this is how I feel. This is how I view the issue, and this is what I would do to try to solve it. But some of the problems that she's claiming to solve, she helped create.
Exactly. Well, John, thanks so much for spending so much time with us this morning. I got to get going, but I appreciate you being on. Let's have you on again soon, okay?
Yeah, appreciate it, Frank, and always a pleasure to be on, and look forward to the next time.
All right. We'll be right back. Frankly Speaking, stay with us. The Boss Security Roof Cam. Contact Boss Security in Horsehouse today for your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you again to Hornell Mayor John Buckley for being on the program. I always appreciate when he joins us. Let's go through some viewer comments, and we have a lot of them because I got to take another break here. We ran late. First up, and we talked a lot about student loan forgiveness. We'll talk about that in just a second. When you're talking about the campaigns, Trump hands down. Somebody better wake up and see the direction this country has taken in the last 4 years, the last 40 years, and it's not a good direction. We are not making it. We are going broke. We have lost everything. We had we can't even afford groceries. And this is a gentleman, meaning the viewer, with 5 years of college, 3 college degrees. We're trying to live on $2,000 a month. That's the state we're in right now. And Donald Trump was, honest to God, the greatest president I've seen in my lifetime. No one brought back the bodies of our fallen soldiers in North Korea over that time span until Donald Trump did it. So that's just a little insight as to where we stand on this. Thank you. And I appreciate your show. Well, thank you. I appreciate you contacting me. Next up, student loan forgiveness. I would tell you this will sure as heck never have any type of forgiveness. We never had any type of forgiveness. We all paid our way. We worked while we went to college. We worked after college to pay off our college loans. No one helped us, no one, and now we're making this thing to give money away. What respect will you have for that degree? Your work. You didn't earn it. It was paid for by we, the taxpayers. Yes, trying to buy votes with that announcement of $175 billion in student loan forgiveness, which keeps getting overturned by the courts, but Biden approving it yesterday. $175 billion in student loan forgiveness 3 weeks out from Election Day. Next up, from another viewer, Donald Trump, President of the United States, maybe his achievements and goals. Talk about that. And instead of the preschool mentality of name calling and ridiculing opponents, maybe just sticking to the facts and being the intelligent gentleman that he is would help in this campaign. But his name calling and his lack of self-discipline is sad. Thank you very much. Another comment from a different viewer. Harris's promises are so empty, she might as well say she will eliminate federal and state taxes. Very good point. Thank you. Another comment. Yes, we could fill the rest of the show, I think, with these comments. Just curious, Frank, have you heard anything from the Trump campaign? Will he be on your show? I have not. But in full disclosure, when I had him on my radio program, I did not hear from him ahead of time either. It was, as anybody who called the program back then, it was just a blinking red dot. And I actually, you've probably all heard this story many times, I had the future president of the United States, because it was in the primary when he was still facing Ted Cruz. He called my show. I had him waiting on hold for about 15 minutes. He listened to my show while I had no idea that Donald Trump was just waiting there patiently on the phone. So that could happen perhaps any day. All of a sudden, I'll get a Zoom announcement or something. So no, I haven't, but I'll keep you updated if I do. Next up, good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. There is now a new category of potential voters, college educated, whose loans were forgiven, but we're not sure if they have enough ambition to fill out a ballot. Very nice. Thank you. When we come back, we've got a couple waves coming in. When we come back, I better take a break, and then we'll read Ken's, and we've got other comments coming in right now. Get those last-minute comments in. We only have about 15 minutes left on this Friday edition of Frankly Speaking, so stay with us. We'll be right back. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio. Thank you for joining us. Ken had this comment to say, and always we thank you, Ken. And by the way, your bumper stickers are in the mail. Okay, Frank, only the low information voters and people that are unfortunately down on their luck believe that their vote buying scheme, meaning Biden-Harris, the vote buying schemes will ever come to fruition. One of those schemes, $175 billion in school loan forgiveness. But if the Democrats do get in power and are able to get the court's approval or Congress to approve the cost, $25,000 free money to buy your first home. What about the millions that scrimped and saved to afford their house? Student loan forgiveness. What about the millions that didn't have the money for college, the ones that scrimped to pay the loans off, and parents that took out second mortgages to pay them off? Another great point, and you think of the person who paid them off. Many of us in this audience, if you went to college, I did, paid mine off, and so now what? I have to pay for somebody else's, or the same goes for someone that decided, hey, out of high school, I'm going to work. I don't want that debt over my head when I'm 21, 22 years old, and now essentially having that debt. There's so many examples of how this is wrong for so many hardworking men and women out there. Next up, $6,000 tax break for new parents. What about the parents that had to scrimp to afford childcare or had to decide that one parent had to quit working to take care of the child? Good point. And finally, $20,000 forgivable startup money for entrepreneurs. What about the people that never started a business because they couldn't come up with the seed money? Will any of the above that worked within their means be given free money from the rest of the taxpayers? So, you're spot on, Ken. And I don't think that plays to many voters. I specifically think about it too. Let's just add this on top of it. We see the student debt forgiveness that Biden approved, to use for campaign money for Harris, essentially. Think of the photos we've seen since school began, but also at the end of last year, of the rioting, the destruction, the anti-Semitism, the anti-police, anti-American protests. You and I, as taxpayers, will be paying for those kids' education. Some of them. So some of the people that are struggling to find a job because of their anti-Semitic protests will have their full degree paid for by you and I, who worked to either pay off our student loan or didn't go to college, or worked to pay off their children's student loans. But keep in mind, you will be paying for many of those protesters at various universities throughout the country who participated in that destruction, intimidation of Jewish students, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, Governor Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, a very important state in this presidential year. Shapiro was asked about what he thinks the difference is between Harris and Biden, because let's face it, Harris's campaign has struggled with that answer, giving very different answers depending on where she goes, right? A different answer from Fox as she gave during the debate and during CNN. He said the election's not between Harris and Biden, so it doesn't matter. That's their new talking point on this. For those who are undecided, this is a clear choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, not Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is someone who wants to lift up this nation, who understands it, et cetera, et cetera. But the point here is that they are going to use a line that the election isn't about Harris v. Biden. It is about Harris against Trump. Keep that in mind. Oh, by the way, I thought this was interesting before we go to a break, but we're not going to have time to get to everything, unfortunately. So in our last break, we are going to move quickly. But I thought this was a good point coming from Fox News. On the first day of early voting in North Carolina, vice presidential candidate Tim Walz hit the campaign trail in Durham. And he made a personal revelation about his mother, and I think this is interesting. Walz said that his mother has to wait for her Social Security check every month to feed herself. That was a part of his stump speech. So Tim Walz's 90-year-old mother has to wait each month just so she can eat for her Social Security check. Okay. According to Forbes, Walz has an estimated net worth of over $1 million, which that can raise questions about, working in government. But anyway, Walz has spent the better part of his career in the public service sector. He was a former public school teacher and Army National Guardsman who served 6 terms in Congress before becoming the governor of Minnesota in 2019. Quote, we are all products of our past. When you grow up a middle-class kid in Oakland or Butte, Nebraska, you care about Social Security. He claimed Donald Trump and all his rich friends don't care or even worry about Social Security. Quote, when my mom looks for that Social Security deposit to be made in her bank account, that's how she's going to feed herself. That's how she's going to get things done. Trump doesn't give a you-know-what if his Social Security check comes or not. So just keep in mind that Walz is poor. I think they said, 90-year-old mother is living Social Security check to Social Security check like so many of you, while her son has an estimated net worth of $1 million. Seems like he could help out a little bit, but that may not fit his talking point. We're going to take a short break, wrap things up, go very quickly, read your last comment, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. The last couple comments to get to and then wrap things up on today's edition of Frankly Speaking. The student loan forgiveness lie will never happen, just another empty promise intended to sway younger, uninformed voters, and furthermore would be a slap in the face of those of us who paid our way and are struggling now. Thank you very much for that comment. Next comment. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. It's sad America doesn't remember the good President Trump did during COVID, like sending a medical ship to New York City and also changing the ventilation system of the Javits Center for thousands of beds they wouldn't use. Sad people hated Trump so much that they wouldn't accept his help. He did a lot of good for our country. Wake up, America. Thank you very much for that comment. Another viewer. Greedy Walz doesn't care for his own mother. How can he care for the country? Yes, learning that his mother, 90-year-old mother, lives Social Security check to Social Security check, while Forbes has estimated that he has, meaning Walz has $1 million in the old bank account. Bill Maher, who I'm not a big fan of, and I think Republicans are very often quick to, when he says something kind of Republican, they go, he's on our side now, and he never is. But he does, I think he raises a good point on this. There's a lot of scuttlebutt in the news this week about Doug, meaning Doug Emhoff, Harris's husband. If people don't know what's going on, the Daily Mail is reporting that 3 women that they talked to, which is how they did this in the past during the Me Too movement and others, which has been stranded very often in these cases, that she said back in, I think, 2011 or something, that they were at the Cannes Film Festival. He slapped her. He thought she was flirting with the valet. And then you had the issue with the nanny that you've heard about, getting his nanny pregnant. That's confirmed. He definitely did that. What I'm saying is, if this becomes more credible, and we don't know yet, I mean, a lot of the conservative outlets still aren't reporting it. So I wouldn't go after anybody for not reporting it yet, because these things have to be checked out. But if it becomes more credible, certainly on the level of Brett Kavanaugh, which was the kind of thing that was reported by everybody pretty quickly, does the liberal media keep ignoring it? And Buck Sexton, who was on the panel, said, yes, absolutely. And he said, wouldn't it make it look worse if they don't report on it? I just don't think they will. Oh, did you see Bill Clinton? I know, now I'm running real fast. Bill Clinton leaving the North Carolina audience befuddled with a very bizarre Trump impression. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, very awkward. Well, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to Hornell Mayor John Buckley for being on the program. On Monday's show, we're going to learn about the SUNY Corning Community College open house coming up next week. On Tuesday, we'll learn about the days of incandescence here in the Gaffer District. On Wednesday, we'll be talking with Brian Maggs, who's running for Chemung County Family Court Judge. And on Thursday, we'll hear from Mary Tarantelli, who's also running for Chemung County Family Court Judge. And on Thursday, we'll learn about the Walk for Life coming up here in Corning. And finally, on Friday, it's Phil Friday. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be our guest. There you go. Make sure you buckle in for the next couple weeks, folks, as we get to Election Day. They're going to be fun, Frankly Speakings, and I hope that you'll join us for every single one. Have a great weekend. This has been Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you bright and early on Monday morning. I look forward to it already.